The stars hung cold and indifferent above the shattered remains of New Haven Colony. Smoke curled into the void where once a thriving human outpost had stood, now reduced to twisted metal and broken dreams. Silence stretched where vibrant life had pulsed, broken only by the crackle of emergency comms and distant cries from scattered survivors. Commander Asha Callan stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her jaw clenched as she stared at the devastation. Her dark eyes, sharp and burning with restrained fury, scanned the data streams flooding in from the wreckage. The Zelthari Dominion had struck without warning, obliterating New Haven with ruthless efficiency. No declaration of war, no demands, just cold, calculated annihilation. Asha's mind raced. This wasn't a random act. It was a message, a brutal challenge thrown down at humanity's feet. For decades, humans had clung to the fringes of civilized space, tolerated as pawns and nuisances by the galaxy's great powers. The Zelthari were supposed to be distant overlords, powerful and inscrutable, but stable. That peace had shattered tonight. Her fingers tightened around the console. "Status report," she barked. "Survivors are minimal, Commander." "The communications," officer replied, voice tight. "Most of the colony's population is gone. Rescue teams are en route, but we don't know how many will pull through." Asha swallowed the lump forming in her throat. She had lost friends here, her second-in-command. Among them, anguish mingled with something colder now. Determination. The Zelthari had made a grave mistake. "We can't let this stand," she said, voice low but fierce. "We need to strike back. We need to show them humans don't break." Across human space, the news of New Haven's destruction spread like wildfire. Colonists gathered, leaders debated, and a firestorm of outrage surged through every settlement. Where there had once been resignation, now was fury and a thirst for justice. In the Resolute's war room, Asha met with the human coalition's representatives, scientists, military strategists, diplomats. The question was clear: how to respond to an enemy vastly superior in technology and numbers. Admiral Cade, a grizzled veteran, leaned forward. "We can't match them ship for ship. We have to fight smarter. Hit them where it hurts, where they least expect it." Asha nodded. "We use our strengths, our adaptability, our unpredictability. The Zelthari rely on order and control. We'll bring chaos." That night, as the Resolute jumped to hyperspace, Asha sat alone in her quarters, the weight of command settling over her like a heavy cloak. Memories of New Haven's bright fields, children laughing, and the vibrant community haunted her. She whispered to the stars, "They wanted to break us, but they only made us stronger." Outside, the vastness of space awaited. The war had begun. In T. The Zelthari High Command, distant and regal, the news of the Resolute's movement sparked fury and confusion. Supreme Commander Thalvarn paced his chamber, his tentacles twitching in agitation. "How dare these humans resist?" he snarled to his council. "They will be crushed, as all rebels before them. But their unpredictability, it worries me." His second-in-command, a stern figure named Ilkar, warned, "Their will to fight is unlike any we have faced. We must prepare for more than simple rebellion. This could become a war of survival." Back aboard the Resolute, the human crew prepared for their first strikes, small, precise attacks designed to undermine the Dominion's supply lines and communication hubs. Scouts slipped through the shadows of space, hunting for weakness. Asha walked among her crew, their faces illuminated by the cold glow of star charts and tactical displays. "Remember," she said, "we fight for every home lost, for every life stolen. We are the spark that will light the fire." Her words echoed in the hearts of those who heard, turning fear into resolve. As the first human fighters launched from the Resolute, the galaxy held its breath. The distant war drums began to beat, but this time the rhythm was human, and it promised a reckoning. The alien empire had fallen into darkness, and from that darkness, humanity's flame was about to rise. The void beyond the Resolute was a cold, empty sea, but for the humans aboard it was a hunting ground. The Zelthari Dominion, vast and seemingly invincible, was about to face a war unlike any before, one waged not by overwhelming force, but by cunning and relentless persistence. Commander Asha Kalin stood in the operations room, eyes flicking, between holographic star maps peppered with blinking red icons, targets the humans had identified as vital supply depots, communication hubs, and escort convoys. Each strike would be a test of their ingenuity and grit. Intel confirms a Zelthari convoy en route to the Serral outpost, reported Lieutenant Rami, her voice steady despite the tension. It's lightly defended but critical for their logistics. Asha nodded. Then that's our first target. We hit fast, hard, and vanish before they even know what happened. The attack was swift. Using sleek, fast frigates modified for stealth, human pilots darted in and out of asteroid fields, evading the Dominion's superior sensors. They struck supply ships and communication satellites with precision strikes, cutting off reinforcements and scrambling enemy coordination. The Zelthari were taken aback. How do these humans operate in such shadows? Grumbled Commander Vrek, his tentacles twitching in frustration as he oversaw the aftermath of yet another failed convoy defense. Their tactics are unpredictable. Back on the Resolute, Asha gathered her senior officers in a cramped briefing. "Room! We can't keep fighting this way forever," said Admiral Cade, leaning heavily on the table. "Our attacks are effective, but we're outnumbered. The Dominion will adapt." Asha's eyes hardened. "That's why we're not just fighting with ships and guns. We'll use their own systems against them." She pointed to a holographic display showing a tangled web of neural connections. "The Zelthari rely on a psychic network, mind links that synchronize their fleet and soldiers. If we disrupt it, their coordination falls apart." Lila Chen, the chief engineer, smiled. "We're developing devices to scramble those psychic signals. If successful, it'll turn their biggest strength into a weakness." While the humans planned, life aboard the Resolute thrummed with restless energy. Soldiers trained relentlessly, mechanics worked late into the artificial night, and scientists pored over alien technology scavenged from battlefields. Asha walked through the corridors, stopping to speak with crew members, each face a story of loss, hope, and determination. In the mess hall, Rami caught her eye. "We're ready for the next phase, Commander. This time, we strike deeper." Asha nodded, feeling the pulse of human tenacity surging through her crew. "Good, because they won't see us coming." The Dominion responded with brutal efficiency. Patrols intensified, and the Zelthari began deploying psychic inhibitors, devices meant to shield their minds from interference. Battles became bloodier, with human pilots facing not only physical fire, but psychic attacks that threatened to unravel their focus. During one fierce skirmish, Asha personally led a squadron through a hailstorm of laser fire and mental assaults. The air was thick with tension as ships weaved through debris and energy blasts. Suddenly, one of the frigates faltered, its pilot clutching his head in agony from a psychic backlash. Asha radioed calmly, "Stay with me, crew. Focus on the mission, not the noise." Her squadron broke through the enemy formation, destroying the target convoy. But victory came at a cost. The pilot's ship spiraled out of control, and Asha ordered a risky rescue. Against overwhelming odds, they pulled him back aboard. The crew's bond deepened. Humanity was not just fighting an alien enemy, but also the limits of their own minds. Meanwhile, whispers of the human rebellion spread across the Dominion. Subjugated species watched with growing hope as humans defied a seemingly invincible empire. Small pockets of resistance began to rise, On a dimly lit outpost, the Zelthari elite debated strategy. "We must crush this defiance quickly," growled Supreme Commander Thalvarn. "But beware. The humans are changing the rules of engagement." His advisor, Ilkar, nodded gravely. "They adapt faster than we anticipated. We face not only an enemy fleet, but a living idea." Back on the Resolute, Asha stared out at the stars, feeling the weight of their fight. "This war isn't just about ships or weapons," she murmured to herself. "It's about breaking the chains they've wrapped around our future." She turned, eyes blazing with resolve. "We will make them remember the name human." The galaxy had never seen what humans were truly capable of, and that was about to change. The Resolute drifted silently on the edge of Zelthari space, hidden in the shadow of a dying star. Inside the ship's dimly lit lab, engineers and scientists huddled around an array of alien tech, their faces a mix of exhaustion and fierce determination. Among them, Lila Chen stood at the center, a brilliant mind wrestling with a challenge unlike any other. "The psychic network is like a web woven through every Zelthari mind in the fleet," Lila explained, pointing to the swirling holograms, displaying neural connections. "It's how they coordinate instantly, like one hive, one consciousness. If we sever even a few strands, their entire system could collapse." Commander Asha Callan paced nearby, her thoughts heavy but hopeful. "So what's the plan?" Lila's eyes gleamed. "We create disruption devices, emitters that flood the network with noise, confusion. They scramble the psychic signals, isolate individual minds. Without their collective coordination, their forces become vulnerable. Developing the devices was a race against time." Zelthari patrols grew more aggressive, hunting the Resolute with an intensity fueled by fear and frustration. Every day brought new skirmishes, and every night stretched longer under the weight of the unknown. When the first disruptors were ready, the Resolute slipped into enemy space once more, its crew holding their breath. "Deploy the emitters," Asha ordered, voice steady but fierce. The devices launched, small but powerful bursts of energy radiating outward. Almost immediately, chaos erupted among the Zelthari fleet. Ships lost formation. Their psychic commanders screamed in confusion as their hive minds fragmented. In the heat of battle, Zelthari warriors found themselves cut off from their brothers in arms, stranded in the vastness of space without the guiding mind link they depended on. Commander Rex's flagship flailed wildly, unable to coordinate defenses. "What sorcery is this?" he bellowed as his fleet faltered. Asha's human pilots seized the advantage, striking with ruthless precision. "Hit their vulnerable points," she barked. "They're fractured." Despite the human advantage, Asha knew this power was a double-edged sword. The disruptors didn't just affect the enemy. They had to be careful not to damage their own minds. The psychic attacks from the Zelthari had already taken a toll on her crew. As the battle raged, Asha retreated to the medical bay to check on Lieutenant Rami, who had suffered a severe psychic backlash during the fight. Rami's eyes fluttered, open. "We're breaking their network," she whispered weakly. Asha grasped her hand. "You're strong. This is our chance." But victory came with growing unease. The psychological strain on the human crew was mounting, dreams blurred with reality. Some began hearing whispers, alien voices invading their minds in the dark. Lila approached Asha privately. "We're pushing the limits. The disruptors scramble their minds, but the backlash can fracture ours too." Asha nodded slowly. "We need to find a balance. We can't become like them, lost in the noise." Meanwhile, within the Zelthari High Command, panic began to take root. Supreme Commander Thalvarn's once unshakable confidence wavered. Humans wield our own psychic bond against us," he growled. "We must evolve or perish." He ordered the development of psychic shields and new strategies, attempts to isolate commanders from the disruption. But the humans were always one step ahead. Back on the Resolute, Asha convened her council. "We've shattered their network, but this is just the beginning," she said. "The Dominion is vulnerable, but they will fight harder, more desperately." Admiral Cade leaned in. "And so must we. We need allies. The Dominion controls countless species. They're not united. We exploit that." Across the stars, oppressed worlds whispered their own hopes. The seeds of rebellion were stirring. Asha's voice echoed in the ship's command center. "This war isn't just ours. It belongs to every being they've crushed. The Dominion falls because we fight, not as individuals, but as one." The battle for the galaxy was no longer a distant war of fleets and weapons. It was a war of minds, wills, and spirit. The humans had struck the Dominion's deepest chord and shattered it, and from those broken pieces a new hope would rise. The dim glow of the hidden rebel base pulsed softly in the endless void, a beacon of hope cloaked in shadow. Here, beneath, the cold gaze of distant stars, beings long oppressed by the Zelthari Dominion, whispered words of freedom and revolt. Commander Asha Callan stood before a gathering unlike any she had ever seen. Around her were representatives of countless species, once crushed under the Dominion's iron heel, now united by a fragile but burning desire for liberation. A slender, four-armed alien named Threkval spoke first, his voice deep with centuries of suffering. "For generations, the Dominion crushed our worlds, our cultures. We lived in silence, fearing their gaze. But your defiance has rekindled something long buried. A hope." Asha's gaze swept across the assembly. "This fight is bigger than humanity. We may have sparked the rebellion, but it will be the strength of many that will break the Dominion's chains." The alliance was uneasy. Old wounds ran deep. Some species distrusted humans, fearing replacement rather than liberation. Yet the shared pain was undeniable. In the war room, humans and alien leaders pored over star charts and intelligence reports. The Dominion's hold was vast, but cracks were visible. Garrison planets stretched thin, supply routes vulnerable, and morale faltering. Celestis, Asha pointed to the gleaming jewel on the map, is the Dominion's heart. Its fall will shake their entire empire. But it's heavily fortified, Threkval nodded grimly. We have spies inside the city, but the cost will be high. As plans unfolded, Asha felt the weight of leadership grow heavier. She understood this was no longer just a war of survival, but one of ideals, a chance to reshape the galaxy. Meanwhile, deep within Zelthari territory, unrest festered. Captive species began subtle acts of defiance, sabotaging equipment, passing secrets, and smuggling information to the growing rebel network. Even some Zelthari soldiers, disillusioned by the Dominion's harsh rule and shaken by repeated defeats, questioned their loyalty. A daring rescue mission became the Coalition's first joint operation. A human strike team led by Asha herself slipped behind enemy lines to extract a key rebel leader imprisoned on a Dominion outpost. The mission was brutal. Silent firefights in narrow corridors, narrow escapes, and moments of raw humanity amidst the chaos. As they fled, the rescued leader, a fierce warrior named Kayla from the Varnox species, looked at Asha with gratitude. "You risk much for us." "It is not forgotten." Asha smiled faintly. "We all risk everything. Because freedom isn't a gift, it's earned." The Coalition's success spread like wildfire. More species joined the cause, swelling the ranks with fresh fighters, spies, and hope. The Dominion's grip weakened as rebels ignited uprisings across occupied worlds. But the Zelthari were not idle. Supreme Commander Thalvarn summoned his commanders, his voice cold and relentless. "We will crush this rebellion. Before it consumes us, let fear be their master." Yet, even as he spoke, cracks appeared in the Dominion's facade. Paranoia seeped into their ranks. Mistrust bred dissent. Whispers of mutiny grew louder. Back on the Resolute, Asha stood in the observation deck, watching stars streak by in hyperspace. The galaxy was no longer a distant backdrop. It was a battleground for freedom and survival. Her second-in-command approached quietly. "The Alliance is fragile, Commander. Some factions push for swift retaliation. Others fear provoking the Dominion too soon." Asha nodded. "We walk a razor's edge, but if we wait too long, the Dominion will strike first." In the darkness of space, the rebel coalition prepared for their boldest move yet, the siege of Celestis. It was a gamble that could end the Dominion's reign or shatter the fragile unity they had built. Asha's voice was steady, but her eyes held a fire that could ignite the stars themselves. "This is our moment. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every soul the Dominion has tried to silence. Together, we will show the galaxy the true strength of the human spirit and the power of unity." As the Resolute slipped into position near the outer defenses of Celestis, a distant roar echoed across the void. The war was no longer a whisper in the dark. It was a thunderstorm, and humanity was leading the charge. The twin suns of Celestis blazed over its towering spires, gilding the gleaming city in harsh light. From orbit, the planet looked serene, an architectural marvel of shimmering glass and steel. But beneath its beauty, a storm was brewing. One that would shake the foundations of the Dominion's empire. Commander Asha Callan stood on the bridge of the Resolute, eyes locked on the holographic projection of the city's defenses. "Celestis is the heart of the Zelthari Dominion. Taking it means breaking their command and control, but it won't be easy." Beside her, Threkval, the four-armed rebel leader, growled softly. "Their psychic shields here are strongest. Our disruptors may not penetrate. We'll have to rely on stealth and subterfuge." The coalition fleet spread across orbit. Human frigates, Varnock's assault carriers, and myriad ships from allied species, all bristling with weapons and hope. Tension was thick as they prepared for the assault. "Deploy infiltration teams," Asha commanded. "We need eyes and saboteurs inside before the bombardment starts." On the ground, the city was a maze of sleek towers and narrow alleys. Human and rebel operatives slipped through shadows, planting explosives and hacking systems. Their mission was clear: cripple the psychic nodes that powered the city's defenses. Lila Chen, leading a small human squad, whispered into her comm. "Disruptors are ready. Once the nodes fall, the city's shield will collapse." Suddenly, a patrol rounded the corner. A brief firefight erupted, sharp, brutal, but the infiltrators prevailed, disappearing into the neon-lit night. Above, the fleet waited for the signal. Supreme Commander Thal Varn's voice crackled through comm channels, cold and resolute. "They are fools to challenge the Dominion. Celestis will remain unconquered." Back on the Resolute, Asha's jaw tightened. "Initiate Phase 1. Target the outer defenses." Explosions rippled across Celestis' orbital shields as human frigates launched missile salvos. The city's protective barriers flickered under relentless assault. Inside the city, the psychic nodes began to falter. Lila's team transmitted. Success. "Shields are down. Now." The ground assault commenced. Rebel troops surged forward, fighting through Zelthari soldiers, whose coordination faltered without the psychic network. The Dominion's ranks splintered, confusion spreading like wildfire. In the chaos, Asha led a charge toward the central command tower, a gleaming spire at the city's core. It was the seat of the Dominion's power on Celestis, and destroying. It meant crippling their entire war effort. Inside the tower, Asha faced her greatest challenge. Zelthari elite guarded the control room, their psychic powers crackling in the air. The battle was fierce. Blasts of energy collided with human grit and technology. One by one, her team fell, but Asha pressed on, fueled by the memories of all lost. She reached the core console, planting charges that would bring the tower crashing down. As the timer ticked, alarms blared. Thalvarn's voice boomed. "You will pay for this insolence." But the tower shook, and with a thunderous roar, the explosion tore through the city's heart. The psychic control network collapsed entirely, severing the Dominion's grip. From orbit, the Coalition fleet surged, pressing the advantage. Zelthari ships, blind and disorganized, were picked apart by relentless human pilots and their allies. Asha watched the battle unfold, a fierce smile breaking across her face. "We did it! Celestis is ours!" But victory was bittersweet. The cost was high. Casualties weighed heavily on the survivors, and the Dominion's defeat ignited a desperate rage. Reports came of brutal crackdowns on other worlds, and whispers that Thalvarn was preparing a devastating counterstrike. In the aftermath, Asha convened the Coalition leaders. "Celestis was a turning point, but the war is far from over. We have their attention and their wrath. We must be ready." Threkval nodded solemnly. "Our rebellion has gained momentum, but we must prepare for the storm." The fall of Celestis ignited hope across the galaxy. Planets once silent rose in revolt, inspired by the humans who dared challenge the greatest empire. Asha looked out at the stars, her voice steady. "This is only the beginning. The Dominion will fall, not because of our weapons alone, but because of the unbreakable spirit of those who fight for freedom." The battle for the galaxy raged on, and humanity's flame burned brighter than ever. The triumph of Celestis was a beacon of hope, but also a flare that drew the Dominion's wrath like a predator sensing weakness. Across the rebel-held systems, alarms blared, and forces scrambled to brace for the inevitable counterstrike. Commander Asha Kalin stood on the bridge of the Resolute, the weight of recent victory tempered by the darkening horizon. Reports flooded in from across the Coalition. Worlds burning, outposts falling, and entire fleets mobilizing with terrifying speed. "Thalvarn is mobilizing everything he has left," Admiral Cade said grimly. "This will be the fiercest response yet." In the Dominion's war room, Supreme Commander Thalvarn's eyes burned with cold fury. His empire's heart had been shattered, but his will was unbroken. "The humans and their allies have struck a wound," he declared, voice echoing through the chamber. "But wounds can be healed. We will crush this rebellion with fire and shadow." His strategy was ruthless and direct. He would leverage overwhelming force, surprise attacks, and merciless psychological warfare to break the rebels' resolve. The first blow came without warning. In the dead of night, the Resolute was rocked by a sudden assault. Dominion stealth cruisers materializing from subspace corridors, their sleek shapes blotting out distant stars. Human sensors screamed warnings as missiles and energy beams tore through the outer. "Defenses! Battle stations!" Asha commanded, her voice calm but resolute. Despite being caught off guard, the crew rallied. The Resolute's gunners roared to life, exchanging deadly fire with the shadowy attackers. Explosions rocked the ship, alarms blaring as damage reports flooded in. Asha's hands danced over the controls, issuing orders with sharp precision. "Deploy countermeasures. Focus on their lead cruiser." Lieutenant Rami, still recovering but determined, coordinated fighter squadrons. "We're engaging now, Commander." The battle in orbit was brutal. The Dominion's stealth tactics gave them a temporary edge, but human resilience and adaptability turned the tide. Fighters darted between wreckage, weaving through deadly flak as Asha's pilots targeted the enemy's vulnerable points. Amidst the chaos, Asha felt the familiar sting of loss. Friendships forged in fire tested to breaking. But the crew fought on, their spirit unyielding. Far from the Resolute, rebel worlds suffered even harsher blows. Dominion forces unleashed scorched earth campaigns, wiping out entire colonies suspected of aiding the rebellion. civilian casualties, mounted, hardening the resolve of those who survived but breaking the spirits of some. Asha's voice crackled over encrypted channels. "Hold the line! We're coming!" Amidst the devastation, cracks appeared within the Dominion's ranks. The same paranoia that plagued the High Command began to spread to field commanders. Fearing betrayal and espionage, Thalvarn's grip tightened. Trust shattered as suspicion ruled. Back on the Resolute, Asha met with her council. "We're facing the Dominion's fury head-on. We need a new plan, one that hits them, where they least expect." Lila Chen, weary but brilliant, stepped forward. "Our disruptors worked on their psychic network before. If we could create a focused strike on Thalvarn's flagship, we might sever their command once again." Admiral Cade frowned. "It's a high-risk mission, deep in enemy territory." Asha's eyes gleamed with determination. "It's a risk we have to take." The plan was audacious. Infiltrate the Dominion's core command ship, disable its psychic, shielding and broadcast a powerful disruptor signal to dismantle their fleet's coordination. Success meant chaos for the Dominion. Failure meant the annihilation of the strike team. As the Resolute slipped into the blackness of enemy space, the crew prepared for what might be their final mission. Asha gathered her closest officers. "We've come too far to falter now. The spirit of humanity, and every ally who stands with us, will carry us through. The darkest depths of the galaxy are no match for our will." The shadow of the Dominion's flagship loomed ahead, a massive fortress of alien metal, bristling with weapons and psychic amplifiers. Asha's voice rang out. "This is our moment, for freedom, for the galaxy." The Resolute and her crew hurtled forward into the storm. The Dominion's flagship hung like a dark monolith in the void, its surface a twisted maze of gleaming armor and lethal weapon arrays. It was the nerve center of Thalvarn's power, the heart of the Empire's last stand. Commander Asha Callan gripped the console on the bridge of the Resolute, eyes locked on the target. The mission was clear: infiltrate, disable the psychic shields, and unleash the disruptor signal that would shatter the Dominion's command. The crew moved with tense precision. Stealth fighters darted through the blackness, weaving past enemy. Patrols and anti-fighter turrets. Sensors flared as they skirted detection, the slightest mistake threatening annihilation. "Approaching boarding coordinates," Lieutenant Rami reported, voice steady despite the weight of the moment. The boarding team assembled in the airlock, a blend of humans and rebel allies, their faces set with grim determination. Asha's voice was calm, yet resolute. "Remember, this isn't just about firepower. We're fighting their network, their minds. We have to be fast, smart, and unified. No room for hesitation." The airlock hissed open, and they were swallowed by the alien ship's labyrinthine interior. The cold metal corridors echoed their footsteps as they moved deeper, shadows flickering under pulsating lights. Zelthari defenders swarmed with relentless fury. The boarding party fought fiercely. Laser blasts tore through the air. But the human rebels pressed on. Each step forward was a battle, each corner a potential death trap. Lila Chen hacked into security consoles on the fly, bypassing encryption and disabling automated defenses. "We're close to the psychic core," she whispered, fingers flying, over her interface. Meanwhile, on the Resolute, the rest of the crew maintained a tense vigil, fending off Dominion fighters that swarmed like angry hornets. Admiral Cade coordinated defenses, eyes sharp for any sign of breakthrough or disaster. Within the heart of the flagship, the boarding team reached the psychic core chamber, an eerie chamber pulsing with alien energy. Massive crystalline structures floated, glowing faintly as tendrils of psychic power rippled through the air. Asha set the disruptor device, her hands steady despite the electric hum that filled the room. Suddenly, alarms blared. More Zelthari poured in. "Hold them off!" Asha shouted. The firefight was brutal. Sparks flew as the rebels pushed back the relentless waves. Lila's disruptor activated, a high-pitched resonance flooding the chamber with disruptive energy. The psychic shields flickered and wavered. Outside, the Dominion fleet convulsed. Ships lost cohesion, their movements erratic as the psychic link shattered. In the chaos, Asha faced Thalvarn himself. The Supreme Commander emerged, his presence overwhelming, a towering figure radiating raw psychic power. You think your feeble human mind can undo centuries of Dominion rule? Thalvarn sneered, but Asha stood firm. We're not just minds, we're hope, and hope is stronger than fear. The two clashed, not just with weapons, but with wills. Psychic energy surged in a storm of light and shadow, the room trembling. As their minds battled, with a surge of strength born from every loss, every victory, Asha pushed forward. Thalvarn's concentration faltered, his psychic shields cracked. Lila seized the moment. Disruptor overload initiated. A blinding pulse surged through the ship, dismantling the psychic core in a shattering crescendo. The Dominion flagship convulsed violently. Systems failed. The great ship groaned, then exploded in a blaze that lit the void like a dying star. From the Resolute, cheers erupted. The psychic network was broken. The Dominion was leaderless and in chaos, but victory came with sacrifice. The boarding team was decimated. Many lay wounded, some lost forever. Asha, bloodied but unbowed, looked out at the stars. The Empire falls today, not because of our weapons, but because of our unbreakable spirit. Across the galaxy, the Dominion's grip crumbled. Planets once silenced erupted in rebellion. The oppressed stood tall, inspired by the human courage. That shattered a dark empire. Asha's voice echoed in the quiet aftermath. This war was never about domination. It was about freedom, the light that no darkness can extinguish. The explosion of the Dominion flagship sent shockwaves rippling through the surrounding fleet. Without the psychic link that once held their forces in unyielding formation, the Zelthari armada fell into disarray. Ships turned on each other in panic, while rebel fleets seized the moment to strike decisively. On the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Asha Kalin allowed herself a brief moment to breathe. The battle was won, but the war for the soul of the galaxy was only just beginning. In the days that followed, the coalition pushed forward with relentless determination. Worlds long oppressed by the Zelthari Dominion declared independence, their flags rising anew in defiance of tyranny. The galaxy, once shadowed by fear, began to glow with the dawn of hope. Asha stood before a gathering of leaders, humans and alien alike, on the newly liberated planet of Elisara. The air buzzed with excitement, tinged with the exhaustion of conflict. Today, Asha addressed the assembly, we are no longer rebels or survivors. We are architects of a new future, one where no species will bow to another's will, where freedom is not a dream, but a reality we build together. The room erupted in applause. The faces around her reflected the hard-won unity, a mosaic of cultures and histories now bound by a shared purpose. Threkval, the four-armed rebel leader who had once doubted human resolve, approached her. You showed us that even in the darkest depths of the galaxy, the human spirit can shine brightest. We will follow that light. Asha smiled, knowing this was just the beginning of a fragile but hopeful alliance. Yet challenges remained. The Dominion's remnants lurked in. The shadows and rebuilding fractured worlds demanded patience and sacrifice. But the galaxy had changed irrevocably. Across the stars, transmissions flowed, messages of cooperation, aid, and peace negotiations. The very idea of empire, of one race ruling all others, was fading like a dying echo. On board the Resolute, Asha reflected on the journey. The faces of fallen comrades haunted her, their sacrifices etched deep in her heart. But their legacy was alive. In every freed world, every life saved. Lieutenant Rami, now fully recovered, joined her on the observation deck. Together they watched the stars, once cold and distant, now shimmering with promise. "We did what many thought impossible," Rami said quietly. Asha nodded. "Because we never gave up. Because we believed." As the Resolute set course for new missions, exploration, aid, diplomacy, Asha's thoughts turned to the future. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns, but no darkness could extinguish the light born from unity and hope. She turned to her crew. "We are more than soldiers. We are guardians of freedom. Wherever the galaxy needs us, we will answer the call." The human spirit, tested by fire and shadow, had not only survived, but triumphed. The galaxy would remember this era, not as a time of domination, but as the dawn of a new age where diversity, courage, and resilience reshaped the stars themselves. And so, under alien suns and human skies, the galaxy moved forward, no longer divided by fear, but united by the enduring power of hope.